Awesome. Okay, we're all popping on. Thank you so much, Paul. Have we got everybody we need? Let's see the names. Yes, we do. Okay, everyone, I am Keri Ferguson from Global. So I anchor the evening news for Global Peterborough and Global Durham. I'll be serving as your moderator today. I'll also be on the panel and answer some questions as well. So this is the final panel of the day. Can't believe it. Just tuned into that last one. I just learned a lot, you guys. How about you guys? It was really good. A lot of useful
I
advice, but
know.
we are going to try and provide that for you as well today. So if you're interested in TV news, sports production, you're in the right place. That's what we're going to talk about today. So without further ado, let's meet the panel, beginning with Amy. Hi, Amy.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for sticking around. 4 o'clock. It's getting late in the day, but I'm so glad to be here to chat with everyone. My name is Amy Saracino, and I am the broadcast operations manager for Global Toronto. So, quick Coles notes on the job. I'm overseeing a team of just over 20 people, and we are producing newscasts from Saskatchewan all the way across the country to the Maritimes. Depending on the day of the week and the time of the day, we're doing a Saskatoon news at 6, or we're doing a Halifax news at 6, or Montreal at 5:30. So there's lots happening across the country. And I have been there for 21 years, but we can get into the details of how that's possible a little bit later.
Awesome, Amy. Now I work with Amy's team every day. They are amazing. Okay, next, Lindsay. Hi, Lindsay.
Hello, happy, 4 o'clock to everybody. I'm really excited to be here. I am the sports and music journalist for City News Toronto, as well as City News across Canada. I'm a contributor to Sportsnet, and I'm also the WNBA and basketball correspondent for BBC News in North America.
Which is absolutely amazing. So that's how Lindsay and I have bonded before over the Raptors, by the way, everyone. Okay, and finally, Shivangi is your student ambassador on our panel today. Hi, Shivangi, just tell us a bit about you and your program.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Shivangi Sharma, and I'm an international student in Conestoga College, and I am studying broadcasting, television, and independent production, and I am glad to be here.
We are so happy to have you here. Okay, and another thing I want to add in too. So we're going to kind of run down what our days are like, kind of the roles that we're in, an overview of what we do, and then we're going to go to a Q&A period. So for the students out there, if you have questions, use the Q&A box. Don't be shy. We don't bite. We want to share everything we know with you. So if there's anything that you think of along the way as we're talking, type in those questions and we will keep track of them. We'll try and answer them, and we'll also leave a good 10-15 minutes at the end of this panel just to answer questions. Okay, so let's begin now with sharing a little bit about what we all do. Let's kind of paint a picture of a day in the life of. Amy, let's start with you.
Sure. So, generally speaking, I'm coordinating with our directors, our camera operators, our audio team, to make sure that all of the broadcasts that we're doing every day are making it to air. So that starts with staffing it. So I do all of the scheduling to make sure that we've got the right people and the right seats to take everything to air. I'm also coordinating with engineering if there's a technical problem and now, the mic isn't working on a certain person. So I'm there to try to help out. How can we fix that issue? If it's an unsolvable issue, I can also coordinate with our master control team. And, this is literally just happened minutes before this panel. We thought we weren't going to be able to get a Kingston broadcast on the air because they've had a failure. So I was madly hoping that would be solved before the panel started. So I'm coordinating with them saying, okay, we can't do Kingston at 6. We want to run this program instead. How do we get that to air? And, who needs to know that information? So a lot of my role currently is sort of dealing with all the different teams to come together to get a broadcast on the air. So some days it's smooth sailing, and everybody's in. There's no sick calls, there's no technical trouble, and we get things going. And then other days like today, there's sometimes a panic, before showtime. I also can be the contact and point person for any specials. So if we're doing, the royal wedding or the Queen's Jubilee, I tend to be the person that starts that conversation about, okay, who do we need? How many people do we need in the control room to do that job? what control room, because we have a few at Global Toronto, what control room is best suited for this thing? Do we need a big control room if we're doing the federal election where we've got to, fit 15 people in there and everybody needs a desk and a computer? Or is it something smaller where it's a handful of people? So where are we going to do it? Who's going to be in the seat? Making sure master controllers are aware we're doing it. They're going to know what source to take to get us on the air. And then, coordinating the editorial side with the tech side. So here's the producer. This is the thing that I want to do. I want the show to start with a unicorn riding in on a rainbow. Okay, how do I get the unicorn on the rainbow on TV? And that's, when I have to go back to my team and say, this is what they want. Can we do it? Oh, we can. We've got a unicorn. Let's make that happen. Or sometimes we can't, and we have to go back and say, we might have to scale back. Can we just use a pony instead? So it's sometimes some diplomatic conversations that have to happen about, we can do this, but maybe this would be a better option.
Okay, and I'm told, Amy, you were directing before this, right? I'm told you were one of the best in the business. That's what your team said to me.
That is that's very generous. Yeah, I did direct for many years, and honestly was the highlight. I loved it. I love being in that control room environment, and we can maybe talk about a little bit about that later when we're talking about our paths. But it's very exciting, and I do miss it a little bit. But yeah, thanks for saying that.
Yeah,
it's very generous.
No okay, so let's go to Lindsay now. And Lindsay, you have the fun job, I think, out of all of us. Yeah,
I think I do. After hearing everything Amy does, I'm like, okay, my job is definitely not that hard. And I feel bad that I'm here talking about this. Also, Amy directed me for a bit. And if you ever saw anything good on the station, it was because of her. She is a saint. I also worked with Keri. We'll talk about that in a moment. But there is no typical day for me because I have these kind of combined jobs of music and sports. It changes every day. So the basics are, I am our only sports reporter for all of City News. So I have to talk to the different markets to see what they would like me to file, if they want something separately, what's the big story of the day, and then also focus on my main job at City News Toronto. For example, today I was on a presser with Bobby Webster about the Raptors trade deadline, and I'm listening to clips of that, asking questions. I have to write something for digital, and then I also earlier in the day file stuff for radio about some of the other stories happening, whether it be with the Leafs or a WNBA player that's joined the Raptors 905 roster. So throughout the day, I'm filing for radio and picking the content that we're going to air for sports across the country on City News, doing multiple interviews, adding in the music element of that. Like today I interviewed Slash and then Kevin Hearn of Bare Naked Ladies. Not to name drop, it just was a weird day where this happened. And then throwing in the Raptors presser and all of the sports news with the Olympics. So it is really fun. It is a lot of stuff that's happening and I have to constantly juggle. And then the best part is I do get to go to the game. So like last night I was at the Leafs game, but I was reporting. So I'm pretty much working from 8 a.m. to sometimes midnight or 1 a.m. But I love my job. And that's what I do is I get to share stories that hopefully I tell a little bit differently about sports and music happening every day.
See, told you it's the fun job. That's awesome, Lindsay. Okay, I'll tell you a bit about my day. So I come in, I hit the ground running. So I take an assignment call from home in the morning at 9, just to kind of get an idea of how the day is going to play out. I come into the station for 1 now because we have a morning crew that comes in. So they try and clear out with COVID before we come in. So we keep our numbers to a minimum here. I am responsible for, let's see, writing, producing 2 updates. I do an afternoon update, an evening update. What else? I do a radio newscast, which is 90 seconds. Who would have ever thought I'd do radio? Didn't know I would, but I do it now. So that's got news, sports, and weather in that. I record those. Then I anchor for Global Durham. So I touch base with the producer, go through the newscast, hop up on the desk, get that done. Then I record those updates that I wrote. And then when I get off the desk, I go back, look at radio. If there's breaking news, I jump back on. Then I start going through our 6 o'clock for Global Peterborough, hop on, do that. After that, so it's an hour of live from 6 to 7. After that, then so I'm working with Amy's team for all of this, by the way. And then I record the late newscast. So I basically read all day long. a lot of news. But it's fun. You know what? I wouldn't change it for the world. I love the busy pace. I do kind of lose my voice by Fridays sometimes, but again, I wouldn't change it for the world. Okay, so let's talk about the paths that we all took to get to where we are, because I always find it so fascinating with people in the business, schooling, where you went to school and how you got that start. Lindsay, let's start with you on that one.
All right, so fun fact, I am actually extremely shy and I never wanted to be on TV. And I'm on TV. So you actually will hear that quite a bit in this industry, but I started out writing for a newspaper in Regina, Saskatchewan, where I'm from. It was for free. It was for people under 20 that wanted to be a journalist. And I wrote about anything I could. And then I went to journalism school and I was terrified. I was so scared to do any of this. So I ended up moving to Calgary to go to their broadcast program there, where I wouldn't know anybody and I'd have to be out of my shell. When I was there, I also became a board op for a talk show radio station in Regina. So I drive back on the weekends from Calgary to Regina and learn the ropes on that. And I fell in love with the radio and having to tell this story just through somebody's voice. And I did that for several years. And then when school was done, I got an internship at CTV Yorkton. And through that, I then got a digital role at CTV Regina, which then led to a reporting job at CTV Regina, which then led to them having a morning show opening. And because I was a local kid, they're like, let's give her a chance. How bad could it be? Wasn't terrible, but I survived it. And I ended up being like sports, entertainment, traffic. There's no traffic in Regina. I can say that I'm from there. It was quite the challenge. Digital. And after that, I got an opportunity to work at CTV News Channel after working at CTV for a while. And I was only there for a month before I got a wonderful opportunity to work at a station that was called Channel 12 that eventually became Global Durham, where I worked with Keri, who every day would vet my script and help with me. And I would shoot my own story, write my own story, edit my own story, write the newscast, anchor the newscast. And then on top of that, I was still freelancing as a sports and music journalist for various publications in North America. And then Global Durham moved to Toronto, where I got to work with Amy, who then directed me and was so kind. And that for me was one of the most challenging parts of this all, because it was a lot of international news, which I did not have to report on for my entire career. So bless her, she was helping me get through a lot of these stories I never heard of, or places that I clearly didn't know how to pronounce properly. And through that, then I got an offer from TSN, from some of my freelance stuff they saw. And then from TSN, City News contacted me because I actually didn't want to be on TV anymore. And when I was at City, I was producing, loving the people I was working with. And then they offered me, hey, we haven't reported on music in a while. City, if no one knows, they were like the original Much Music. It was their station back in the day. They wanted to bring it back. And then I was really lucky. They saw that I had a sports background and then created the position of a sports and music journalist for me, which is one of a kind, and I love it. But during all of this, I have also freelanced on the side for BBC, ESPN, Rolling Stone magazine, Billboard, because I love to work, which is not a good habit to have too much. But that was my journey, Cole's Notes, a lot of stops along the way, and you meet a lot of wonderful people.
Definitely. The hard work pays off. And I mean, it's amazing to hear. And that's why I like sharing these stories, because you have to go after what you want, right? And you have to be willing to try everything to find what you want too. That's amazing, Lindsay. I love it. And I miss working with you, by the way.
Me too.
Okay, Avi, how about your path?
Sure. And I miss working with you too. So my path was not as crisscross in the country as Lindsay's was. I am originally from Niagara, and so I came to Toronto to go to school. I did a joint program with York University, where I did a double major, and then Seneca, where I did broadcasting, the radio and TV program. So it was 5 years at York and 3 years at Seneca, sort of York for one, together for three, and then finished at York for the last. And through my Seneca program, I got an internship at Global, and it was to work on a talk show that they used to have called Binin. It was sort of like an entertainment-y talk show. And the internship, I think, it wasn't for very long. It was like maybe 6 weeks or 2 months. And I would go in every day, schlepping on the bus, because Global is not near anything. And I did my internship. I was doing research. I was, setting up interviews when the guests would arrive at the station. I would get their coffee and walk them to the green room and sort of, make sure that everybody was prepared. And I really loved it. I just loved being in there. And I guess, at some point somebody recognized that I was doing a good job and I was super eager, and a part-time position became available for an editorial assistant, and they offered it to me, which was amazing. So I basically went from intern in the spring, and then I got hired as a part-time role in the fall. So for my last year of school, I was working there as well. And an EA is, you're getting the scripts, you're rolling the prompter, you're making sure the coffee machine is filled. You're answering the phone if it needed to be answered, and sort of all of the things that are happening that make the station kind of tick. From there, I was offered a job to do some graphic playout for the live shows. So in my mind, when I went to school, I thought I really wanted to be a reporter. That was kind of what I wanted to do. And then when I got hired, they, you would, as an EA, you could go out with the camera person and get clips. So they say, oh, the reporter's doing the story, but they say, okay, Amy, I'm doing the story on this. I need you to ask these 3 questions to this person. And I would go, and I just hated it. I thought I was so nervous. I got totally uncomfortable. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is what I thought I wanted to do, and now I'm doing it, and I don't like it at all. But what I loved was being in the control room. It was dark. It's very exciting. It's live. I love the vibe of everybody working together for that period of time to get that show on the air. And so I really had to decide, what am I going to do now? And so I got offered to do this graphics playout job, and I accepted that, and I did that part-time. And then that just got me in the control room even deeper. And then I got kind of lucky because I skipped over the job, which would have been next, which was Chiron operator back in the day, where you're typing out everybody's name keys and putting them to air. And I got to move ahead to a production assistant. So you're working with the director. Some stations call it an AD, assistant director. We called it a PA, production assistant. And in that role, you're sitting right next to the director. You're counting out all of the times of the show. You've got to get really good at your, counting backwards and clock math instead of regular math. And it's a very stressful job. But I loved it. And, it just kind of from there evolved. The director position became available. And so I got to move into the director's role. And I did that for a period of time. And then the supervising director position became available. So then I became the person overseeing all of the directors. And then from there, the operations manager job came up. So not just the directors now, but overseeing all of the control room staff. So for me, the path was, I was at Global the whole time. I did do some freelancing. I freelanced at Sportsnet. I freelanced for CTV a little bit. I liked that, kind of getting to see the other stations and how they worked. But I'm not such a risk taker. And the nervousness about going completely freelance, I wasn't comfortable with that. I liked that I had a job, even though the hours are crazy and you'd be working weekends and early mornings and late at night. And, sometimes you're doing all of those shifts in one week. It was very hard in the beginning to have a schedule. You didn't know what that schedule was. And because I was eager, I would just accept whatever shift was. You want to work overtime? You want to do 7 days a week? Yes, I'll do it. I'll take it. So it was, I loved that. But the interesting thing for me was just that I went into it with one thing in mind. And then when I got the opportunity to do that one thing, I realized that I did not want to do that one thing. But I was still lucky that I found my home in the control room. And, those were my people. I just loved that energy. And it can be very tense and very stressful depending on what kind of situation it is. And sometimes there's yelling, and sometimes, there's some fist banging on the desk. But the great thing about Global is that no matter what's happening for that hour, say you're on the hour, you're on the air for an hour and it's very intense, and the producer's screaming, go to this, and you're screaming, I can't go to that, it's not ready. And then you finish the show and it's fine, because we all know that was in that moment to get that thing on the air. Everybody's tense and we wanted to do it. And then we just put that to the side, and we could really be friends. Global, it was really a big family there. People would hang out outside of work, and people were very friendly, and everybody wanted each other to succeed. But we all understood that sometimes, things had to get done. And I'm a pretty positive person and an encouraging person, I like to think. And so they've nicknamed me when I had to get tough or whatever. They said, "Oh, Business Amy's here today," because I get like a different tone in my voice. If I really need something done right away, Business Amy appears and she kind of takes over for a little while. but it was a fun journey, and for me, it was great being at the same place the whole time, because there's comfort in people knowing you, knowing how hard I worked, giving me those opportunities, and allowing me to grow there where I felt at home. So, unlike Lindsay, where she was going to several different places and finding her home in each of those places, I found my home here, and I've just lived there all this time.
That's awesome, Amy. And now you're working from home, which I have to point out, you've got young kids. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, 4 and 6, and it's been a time.
It's impressive that you pull it off. And talking about the control room too, that chaos that happens, it's amazing, because I'm on the other end. I'm out on the desk. And it is amazing when you work with such professionals like Amy and her team. I don't know that stuff is going on behind the scenes. I don't want to know what's going on behind the scenes. But after the cast, we're friends. We talk about it, what happened, what went wrong. And it is just such a sign of a true professional to not let the person out on the desk or whatever, the people out doing the live, they don't need to know about the chaos. And you guys just somehow always pull it together. It's pretty amazing.
That's nice to hear. And I honestly just like, if there are people who are looking at a career like a control room or a director role, it's one of my top priorities in trying to tell people is put yourself in that anchor's shoes. Nobody knows who I am. They see a picture of me, they don't know what I'm doing. They don't know that maybe I made the mistake, and now the poor anchor is out there trying to scramble. It's their face, right? And so it's really important that you put yourself in their shoes, and not freak them out. Like, if there's mad chaos, I just have these moments of people are like, Keri, we're going to go to camera 2, and that's it. Just really.
And that's exactly how it sounds. I'm not even kidding. That's what it's that calm voice. It's okay. Coming to camera 2 next. Okay.
Yeah. It's
awesome.
So important.
Oh, yeah, it is. Okay, I'll give you a quick rundown because, oh my gosh, we're eating up time here. Okay, so I went to school. Actually, I was going through school to be an English high school teacher. That's what I thought I wanted to do. I went up to North Bay. I know. Can you believe it, Lindsay? I can't imagine it now. Anyway, so I went up to school in North Bay to Nipissing University. It was a new concurrent education program. Whatever. Started down that path. Took a teaching assistant job. Realized, no, that's not for me. My moment kind of happened. I was coming off the bus one day to go into campus, and up there, Nipissing and Canadore College share a campus. So there was a camera with a student reporter standing in front of it. And it was that aha moment for me. You know how people talk about that cheesy aha moment? I swear that is my aha moment in life, because I'm like, that's what I want to do. It was remarkable, actually. So anyway, so I finished off my English degree, went to Canadore for that program. It doesn't exist anymore, which is a shame, because it was a great program. We set up internships. I actually got a job before I got to my internship, though. And what happened, it was a job board at school, which, yeah, check those guys, because you'll never know what's going to pop up there. It was a job in Dauphin, Manitoba. Lindsay will know where that is. It's in the middle of nowhere. Actually, the station doesn't exist anymore. It shut down when I was there. But it was amazing because I learned how to do everything. It was a videographer. So we'd go in at 9 o'clock in the morning. It was a videographer job. You'd shoot for the day. We'd take turns doing the noon show, which we would read agriculture numbers. It was like cow-calf pairs trading at. I'm like, what have I done with my life? Anyway, and then we'd finish our story for the day, and we'd then hop on the desk and read a 6 o'clock newscast. So it was a good 10-hour day. I made absolutely no money. It was horrific. But I learned so much. So I'd do it all over again. Anyway, that station closed down. I went to Brandon, Manitoba. Again, Lindsay, you'll know that station. It is shut down too. I was a producer there, so I got to experience the control room, and that was back before computers and everything timed everything out. It was literally a pencil and paper back timing the show, And I am terrible at math, as most of us are because we're in this industry. Back timing a show, wholly stressful. Anyways, also backup anchor, ended up on the anchor desk. Where did I go next? Job came up in Timmins, Ontario. I wanted to get back to Ontario. I'm from Ontario. So took that job. That was really hard too. Big cameras. I was out in the field. I took a backup anchor job, knew I wanted to anchor. So I got a call from CTV Saskatoon. Out of the blue, I had sent a demo forever ago. And so that's another piece of advice. Just keep sending your stuff out there, because the jobs, when they come up, usually people have already talked about applicants that have already come in, demos they've already seen. So get your stuff out there. So went to Saskatoon, CTV Saskatoon. I was reporting, anchoring. The job came open at CTV at Global Saskatoon for the 6 o'clock anchor. They actually asked me if I was interested. Went there. 6 years I was there. This job came open back home. I'm back here. That's my story. So again, like Lindsay, a lot of crisscrossing, but you know what I learned? I learned a lot about myself. I learned how to do everything, right? Which I think it's amazing, because I have so much respect, Amy, for what goes on in a control room, because I've been back there when the crap hits the fan, and it's wild. Anyway, so I knew for me, I was opposite. I'm like, whoa, I can't handle this. I'm going out to the studio where it's quiet. Anyway, okay, so let's move on, because oh gosh, we've only got about 10 minutes left. Let's give some tips. Let's give some practical advice to the students out there about landing that first job, maybe some tips for interviews when you land that first interview. Amy, let's start with you.
Sure. I think, it's important to be on time. It's important to, take it seriously. And I know maybe that sounds kind of silly, but I think sometimes we're kind of in a casual world now, and I think that can carry over into work a little bit. And I think for me personally, I still really appreciate when somebody comes, ready to have an interview. They've watched Global. They know what shows we do. Maybe they've done a little Googling and they go, oh, I see you guys have robotic cameras. Just a little tidbit that shows me that you've invested a little bit into this interview. You didn't just send a resume out and you didn't have any thought. When you got the interview, you came prepared. I also really like it when you have questions in the interview. I always finish with, do you have any questions? And I appreciate when there are some, because it's a nice, it's that opportunity really for you to find out a little bit more about the job, about the station, what's the culture like. It's really important, I think, to ask those questions. And I think, you have to know when you're coming in, if it's in sort of a more entry level role, that there might be things that you think are a little bit beneath what you would expect to be doing. And that's okay, because we're all just trying to do a show, and so even now in my role now, when I go into the station, if they're like, oh my gosh, we don't have somebody to roll the prompter, like, I'll go and roll the prompter, no problem. If the anchor is on the desk and I need hairspray, I'll go have you hairspray, there's no problem. I don't look down on any task that's being asked of me. And I think that maybe I've overstepped, Keri. That's not really an interview thing, but that's just like when if you've gotten the job now and you're there, people aren't asking you to do something to make you, to belittle you, to make you feel like that's all you can do. We're asking you because it's a fast-paced environment. And if that anchor needs some hairspray or a lint roller, they need it right now. Like, whoever's closest to the makeup room, please go and get that thing. So I think I think it's really important just to be agreeable to what's being asked of you in the moment, and I certainly wouldn't say no to whatever that is. And it's really appreciated. And honestly, it's really noticed when people do agree to those things, or when somebody gives an eye roll and is like, you really want me to go and do that thing? It's, people notice those things, and you might think that they don't, but they really do. They really do. So that's my big piece of advice for people starting out is, the hours are going to be weird, and you might be asked to do stuff that you've done 5 years of university, and you're like, am I really going to make somebody their coffee? But you are. It's fine. It really is fine.
I just want to
Totally agree.
Keri,
Yeah,
because I
Lindsay, go
don't
ahead.
so much have interview tips because, to be honest, I'm not the best at it because it has changed so much since I last had an interview. But I do have a lot of people ask me like, hey, are there any jobs opening or what advice do you have? But the number one thing, and I know this sounds crazy, is to be kind to each other. This is such a small industry. I had no idea Amy or Keri were going to be on this panel before I accepted it. And it turns out that they were, and they both were so nice to me. I know that I haven't been nice every single day of my life, but I know that these two women were very gracious with their time. They helped me gain confidence. They also helped me advance my career. And almost everybody who I've met throughout this industry, whether it even be people I went to school with, I've somehow come in contact again, even if they were from the middle of Saskatchewan or Dauphin, Manitoba, whatever it may be, you somehow will come into connection with them again. And really just in life, I think that all should be our motto of just be kind. There's really no reason to be mean unless, hey, sometimes people are mean to you and sometimes you have to be stern, but there's a difference between it. So please be nice to everybody because you will most likely encounter them again in this industry. But you really also, I think, don't be in this if you want to be famous. And I know people are hearing that they're not going to like it. And I know it's a different industry than when I started, but the amount of people sending me like TikTok videos or this, or, oh, hey, I saw you interviewed this famous person and I just want to be on TV. Like Amy mentioned and Keri, the hours can be really long and you're most likely not going to start off with the dream job you want. And you honestly may not get it, it may shift, but you're going to start somewhere and you have to find the passion in that job. Pushing buttons at a radio station, I had joy helping somebody else create their content. Eventually you'll get to maybe a job that you will love and it may not be the one you want, but we all start somewhere. So don't come in with a huge ego. Like Amy said, thinking something's below you. You have to start somewhere and that will eventually get you those opportunities. A lot of the biggest part is just getting your foot in the door, being nice, being grateful, finding that passion and having a work ethic. You're going to need it. And if you're in this just to be famous, that most likely is not going to translate to you being long-term in this industry. I know that's harsh, but I'm just trying to be helpful because nobody told me that.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that. We've talked about this too, burning bridges. I can't even tell you how many times I have seen people burn bridges. You know, don't be a jerk. It's gonna bite you in the end. The whole karma thing, it is so true. I actually had I won't name any names. It was a sports guy. I worked with him, not easy to work with. He doesn't work in the business anymore. But I had started a new job. He had applied there. They just asked, hey, you know this guy? I'm like, yeah, he's kind of a jerk, but he was. So just be careful because it will bite you in the butt. I promise you. Okay. So, Shivangi, we only have 4 minutes left for questions. Do you have some ready to go?
Yes, I do have.
Okay.
We all talk about that networking is the key for a successful career. But as a student, let's just take an example, a situation that I found one of you on LinkedIn and I follow you and I give you a request. So what are the chances that there will be a positive reward from your side, and what is the best way, proper way to approach anyone, either for a job or internship or for anything? Like, how do we make connections? Because we all talk about making connections and keeping them alive, but the first thing is for the students, like, how do we start?
Yeah, good one. I'm going to start with that one too. I'm the LinkedIn person. My profile isn't too built up on there. So students do that too. Build up your profiles, okay? But I think it's so important. Your role right now, the student ambassador, that's huge. We see you. I know your name now. That's the same thing. When I was in school, I got onto, it was an advisory board. And so, I picked brains around that table. Then my first boss was from that, my second boss, third boss was from the advisory board. So get out there, volunteer, get into those kind of roles. Amy, how about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think, most of the teachers in the programs either worked at these stations or know people who work at the stations. And so I would suggest that you sort of start with them. We do internships too. And so I think it's important to find out, I don't know how every school does it, but is there an internship program? How can I apply for that? And then talk to your teachers. We've had teachers call and say, we have this really great student, and if you need somebody starting out, I would love to do it. And we have done the reverse and reached out and said, we have this job we're trying to fill, and do you have anybody really great? So I think take school seriously and your relationship with your teachers and the staff there, because they really can be the ones to open that first door for you.
I'll add on to that because I'm not great at social media. I find it overwhelming. So there's so many requests in this just for anybody. And I honestly, kudos to everybody here that has a great social media game. But when somebody does reach out to me saying like, hey, is there an internship or can I shadow you for a day? I will look at their social media. And I'm telling you right now, if there's somebody doing bong rips or there's half nudes or just crazy things that, and I know in a sense, I'm very old school in terms of representation and what I wear or what I post online, but I do not want somebody that may not represent the company or even be associated with me in not a positive light. So you really need to watch what you're putting on social media. And I know the world has changed. Some places they're not as caring as much about that. But for me, I do. I will immediately go look to see if you have any, you know, maybe things that could be taken as hateful posted online or anything like that. So please watch what you're putting online. And I know you've probably been told that so many times by your teachers, and just a rule in general is just watch that. And but most likely, like a lot of people, if you reach out every once in a while, like sometimes we all get bombarded with emails. I get close to 1,000 a day. Is I look, and if they're like, hey, can I have an internship? Well, like I can't offer it, but I can maybe let you shadow a day, or I can let you hop on an interview on Zoom with me so you can see what the process is. So just don't take it personally if somebody doesn't respond. That's also a thing. Or if your demo doesn't get watched. It is a tough industry. We're all in it together, but watch your social media and put out on LinkedIn, then maybe try to find their email just saying, hey, if you have a moment, I'd like to connect with you. The worst they can do is not respond or just say no.
Yeah, for sure. Good advice there, for sure, Lindsay. What else did I want to say about that? Yeah, oh, internships. Try and think long and hard about where to apply for an internship. If they're still happening, I'm not sure what's going on right now, but I can tell you half of our staff here started as interns, at least half, and have worked their way up. So that's a huge one. And if you land that internship, work your butt off. Impress people. Be confident. Don't be cocky. That's my advice there. Okay. Oh my goodness. I think we're out of time. Can we fit in one more question, Gina, or are we done?
You're welcome to fit in another question if you'd like.
Okay. Let's have another one, Shivangi. It's going too fast.
So there are so many questions in the question and answers chat box too.
Yeah.
So I saw this one, that how do you guys balance work life with their own life? Any tips on balancing that?
I love that question. You know what, Amy, let's start with you because I know what you're going through at home, right?
Yeah. I mean, prior to the pandemic, it was a bit easier to balance work and home because I was at work and I was at home. And now everything is here around my dining room table, and it's become a bit more complicated. But I think it is hard. I don't want to sugarcoat it because it can be very hard to find the balance, especially when you're starting out. And I know in the very beginning, you're getting asked to do a bunch of different shifts, and you might be in a relationship with a person who's working like a nice 9 to 5. And now that person's on 9 to 5 and you're doing 4 to midnight and they're off on weekends and you're working weekends, and it can be challenging. And so all I can say is that you sort of have to kind of mentally prepare for that, and know that it hopefully is for a period of time, that there's going to be something happening on the other side where life will balance out a little bit. I do think it's important, and it is hard in news because news can break at any moment. And so I could just be at home on a Saturday having dinner, and suddenly there's some crisis that we've got to staff up and get people to the station. And in those moments you have to say, I have to step aside from this right now and deal with the work thing. And then there are other times when maybe it's not a big a crisis. You can potentially delegate some of that work to somebody else, because you're prioritizing your family in that moment. It is important to make those determinations on when I really need to focus on my work, even though it's when I'm supposed to be at home, and when I can, maybe ask somebody else. It's great. I have a really good right hand guy at work with me. We work like a pair, and so if I'm super swamped with something, he can pick up the other part. If he's super swamped, he will pass it over to me. So it's nice to have somebody that you can work like that with as well. But maybe that's not a great answer, to not sugarcoat it, but it really can be hard to find that balance, and I think if you're getting into news, you have to be aware of that. There are going to be times when your vacation is going to get interrupted because something's happened at work that you have to kind of sort out. A colleague of mine, they had to postpone their Disneyland vacation because there was an election that got called and she had to be the person to do it. So there are times when you have to make those decisions, and that's a really personal thing on what is it that's going to be to take away from my family or my relationship, and what can I maybe not deal with that right now at 9 o'clock at night and deal with that tomorrow morning.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough. Okay, Lindsay, how about you?
I won't sugarcoat it either.
No.
See, I don't have children, and I have, just mostly because of the pandemic, I have absolutely almost no work to home balance because I am home all the time. But the problem is I annoyingly love my job too much that when somebody asks, like, can you interview this artist, or if there's a game, do you want to cover? Like, I'm always going to say yes, and it's learning to say no, which is something I have to and everybody has to do. So I will say, learn from my mistakes. You have to eventually set boundaries. And so, like, I can't sugarcoat it. I'm going to probably be working till 11 o'clock tonight, and I love it. But so many people I know around me are burnt out because they're not setting those boundaries. So I'm just saying, if you can learn from me and someone else, try to take an hour away from pretty much everything that is coming down in the world on us. And it's just it's really hard in this industry, like Amy and everyone's saying, is because there's so much news happening and it constantly is changing. And you also, like, if there's a story, you want to go chase it, you have to realize, like, is it worth your family life? Are you trying to advance your career? And really watch those priorities. And to be honest, I've always put my career forward. And I have a partner, like I have a husband now that understands it. So it's teach their own. It is really hard. I know a lot of people that speak to counselors, because you also will sometimes, depending on what part of the job you're in, you'll see some crazy things and report about stuff. So please also watch out for your mental health. And I know we're running out of time. I didn't see the Q&A questions. So my email's on my Twitter account, and I want to answer them because there's a lot of good ones about being a woman in sports and music and all that. So please, I'll be online for the next couple hours. Send me a note. I'm sorry I missed them.
Good advice there. Yeah, you know what? Reach out to us by email. You can find Amy and I too on website, go to global.ca. You can find our emails on there. We'd love to hear from you. We really would. Okay, we're out of time. I can't believe how fast that went. Okay, so thank you. Thank you. Oh, doesn't it? Doesn't it? It's been amazing to share our experiences, and we really appreciate it. OAB has been, it's awesome that we do this event.
Thank you so much, Keri, Amy, Lindsay. Thank you for saying yes to this one as well. Add it to the list, and Shivangi as well. Thank you for participating in this. On behalf of the OAB, I really want to thank all of our panelists, especially our students, for being here and showing your interest in this career, and looking forward to, all the opportunities that are available for you very soon, and how you'll take this advice. Thank you to Evanov Communications for being our title sponsor, also our panel sponsors, Fanshawe College, Loyalist College, and also MZ Media. We're going to replay Getting the Gig video by Troy McCallum at the end of this, if you were not able to enjoy that at the beginning. So hang on for that. I also wanted to say that there will be a Zoom follow-up invite for your feedback, so that we can make sure that we continue to deliver the content and the information that you want for this. And the future definitely looks bright with all of you entering into this career, and by all of your engaging questions that you are asking. We can all tell that you're excited and really looking forward to seeing where this goes. We all love following your paths. So thank you again to the committee members and everyone who is here, and all the best in your job search. And you've made lots of new contacts and friends here today. And we do have the OAB job board that we also want you to visit. We'll throw that link into the chat one more time before you sign off. Thanks again, everyone. And thanks to the OAB.
Good luck, everyone.
Welcome, broadcasting students in OAB. First of all, thank you so much for asking me to bestow upon you everything that's in here. God help you. Bear with me. Don't have a lot of time. Got to be a lot of fast edits here. I got too much stuff. Okay. You got to get their attention. Just send us your best stuff. And then you got 15 seconds, at least in my books you do, 15 seconds to wow me, to make me think, oh yeah, okay, this person's got some qualities there I think I might be able to work with. So there you go. Step one on getting the gig. Can you do production? Can you write? Can you produce? Can you edit video? Can you shoot video? Social media. Yes, being on air is important, but in today's industry, in case you haven't noticed, things are shrinking. So ultimately, you want to be the person where if they need to let somebody go, they go, we can't let them go. They do too much. They're too valuable. So be that person in order to get the gig. Attitude is everything, okay? If somebody calls you up, a program director calls you up, say, hey, I heard your demo, I think it's pretty good. Are you interested in chatting? You're like, wow, holy cow, I can't believe this is so out of the blue. Tell me a little bit more about it. And if it's okay, can I call you back at a good time and go over some questions that I may have? Get yourself some passion, because that will help you. What? You need your foot in the door, because when you get your foot in the door, it gives you that opportunity to go, hey, I can do this. Hey, I'd like to try this. Volunteer for everything. Even if you don't know it, learn it. I was offered the job of program director. I'd never been a program director before. I'm 7+ years into it. Things are pretty good. I didn't really know everything about it, but I said yes, and I learned along the way. And you know what I got? I got the gig. You got to be willing to relocate. You got to be willing to move. You got to go where the money is and set yourself some goals when you're there. All right? I'm in small market, Alberta. I give myself 2 years to learn as much as I possibly can so I can move on and get the next best gig in a bigger market with more money. And then set yourself another goal of 2 years or maybe 3 years. Life gets in the way. But either way, know where you ultimately want to go and work towards getting there. Make those phone calls, make those connections, do all that networking. It's very important. Send out your demos to PDs of markets that you want to go to and ask for their critiques. If they don't get back to you right away, chances are a lot won't, but just keep trying. Do not lose sight of where you want to be so you can ultimately what? Passion is going to be what fuels your career onward and upward. So thank you for the opportunity to chat with you, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Good luck. Get a gig.